The morning was cruel, biting cold, wind sharp enough to slice through bone. Elijah clutched his baby girl closer, wrapping her in the only blanket they had left. Her tiny cries pierced through his already broken heart. He had no milk, no food, and nowhere to go. At just 29, he had lost his wife to complications during childbirth, lost his job 2 weeks after, and now stood on the sidewalk outside a grocery store in a neighborhood far wealthier than any place he had ever lived. He didn't care anymore about pride. He didn't care that his shoes were torn, that his face hadn't felt soap in days, or that his voice trembled when he spoke. All he cared about was his daughter, Sophie, whose cries were becoming weaker and more desperate. Hunger was gnawing at her, and it was killing him inside. He hadn't eaten since yesterday, and what he had, he'd given to her. Elijah approached a woman stepping out of a black Range Rover. She was dressed in an elegant coat, gloves that probably cost more than everything he owned, and sunglasses that hid most of her face. Her posture was confident, the kind that came from years of never hearing no. He hesitated. Maybe she'd ignore him. Maybe she'd look down on him like others did. But Sophie's cry made up his mind. "Ma'am," he croaked, his voice cracking. "Please, I'm sorry to bother you. I just need some milk for my baby. I'm not asking for money. Just something to feed her." She paused. Her head tilted slightly as she looked at the shivering man and the tiny, red-faced baby in his arms. For a moment, he expected her to recoil or rush past like the rest. But instead, she stepped closer, pulled off her glasses, and looked directly at him. Her name was Elena. No one knew her full story. Most just knew she was rich, successful, and always distant. Her mansion overlooked the very city Elijah now wandered, and her bank account held more zeros than most could imagine. But she had a past she buried deep, and something about this man, this baby, unearthed memories she thought were long dead. "Follow me," she said, softly. Elijah blinked. I don't mean to trouble you, miss." "It's not trouble," she said, her voice gentle but firm. "Come." Inside the nearby cafe, coincidentally one she co-owned, she asked for the private room in the back. As he sat, stunned by the warmth and smell of coffee and croissants, she didn't ask questions. She ordered a bottle of warm milk. Then, to Elijah's absolute disbelief, she took Sophie in her arms, adjusted her coat, and began to feed the child herself, calmly and confidently. Elijah was speechless. "Your baby is precious," she whispered. "She deserves to be fed, to be loved." Tears streamed down Elijah's face. He wiped them quickly, ashamed. "I lost my wife during delivery," he said, brokenly. "She was all I had. I worked in construction. When the company downsized, I was let go. No family. No friends close enough. It's just me and Sophie now. I don't know how to do this. But I love her. God, I love her so much." Elena nodded slowly. She didn't speak for a long time. Instead, she looked down at Sophie, whose little mouth now suckled contentedly. Then she said quietly, "I was left at a fire station when I was a baby. Grew up in the system. I used to dream about someone like you. Someone who cared. I never got that." Elijah looked up in surprise. "You?" "I built myself from scratch," she said. "Every dollar, every deal, every scar. People think I'm cold. They don't know why. But I know what it's like to be hungry and alone." There was a pause. Then she added, "You're not alone now." Over the next hour, Elena asked Elijah questions, not about what he lacked, but about what he hoped for. He spoke about wanting to find work again, about the guilt he carried not knowing how to soothe Sophie's cries. She listened, truly listened. Then, before he could protest, she offered him a place to stay, a guest house behind her property. Clean, safe, warm. No strings, she promised. Just help until you can stand. Elijah hesitated, overwhelmed. "Why would you help me?" "Because someone should have helped me," she said. "And because I can. You'll get back on your feet. I believe that." And she meant it. In the weeks that followed, Elijah worked odd jobs. Elena introduced him to a few trusted people. She never flaunted her wealth, never treated him as charity. Instead, she empowered him. She showed him how to create a resume, got him a suit for interviews, and even took turns watching Sophie when he had no choice but to attend meetings. He slowly transformed from a broken, desperate father to a man who held his head a little higher each day. Sophie thrived. She grew healthier, happier. And she adored Elena. One night, as the sun set behind the city skyline, Elijah sat on the porch of the guest house, watching Sophie nap in her crib. Elena came by with 2 mugs of tea. "I never asked," she said. "What's your dream, Elijah?" He smiled. "To build homes for single parents. Safe places. Like what you gave me. I want to be that kind of man." She looked at him for a long time, eyes soft. "You already are." Eventually, Elijah landed a stable job as a site manager in a housing project. Elena, quietly and anonymously, donated funds to launch a shelter for young single parents, which Elijah ran. It wasn't long before his story caught attention, not because of tragedy, but because of his resilience and purpose. One afternoon, a journalist asked Elijah, "What turned it all around for you?" He looked into the camera, then down at Sophie, who sat happily playing with blocks nearby. "There was a day I came begging for milk," he said. "I thought I was at the lowest point of my life. And then this woman, this complete stranger, didn't just give my baby food. She fed her herself. And in that moment, I realized kindness, real kindness, changes lives." The video went viral. But Elijah never chased fame. He stayed grounded, devoted to his daughter, and committed to helping others. As for Elena, few ever knew the full truth of her role. She stayed behind the scenes, watching quietly, her heart finally beginning to heal through the very act of helping someone else find their way. And in the end, Elijah's story didn't just inspire. It reminded the world that sometimes, the people with the most to give are those who know exactly what it feels like to have nothing at all. Because love doesn't always wear a title. And heroes don't always wear capes. Sometimes, they just hold a bottle of warm milk in their hands. And offer hope, one selfless act at a time.